Even in Mexico, where violence is a currency and law enforcement's #1 priority is about keeping up appearances rather than actually fighting crime, the Zetas were doing way too much. They were the narcos version of ISIS, and there wasn't enough bribe money in the world they could pay politicians that would allow them to keep operating the way they were, at least not in the state of Coahuila. The man who calls himself Sombra remembers the Zeta wars vividly.
Check it out. They had different people operating in different functions within the organization. First, you had people who operated as hawks or lookouts. Then others operated as hitmen. And then there were others who operated as the drug dealers, people who were put in charge of selling narcotics. Other people were in charge of mobilizing economic resources. It really was like a mini company or a mini corporation.
And when you say hawks, what do you mean by hawks?
The hawks were the people in charge of feeding information to the operational groups and to the plaza bosses about everything that was happening in the city. And I mean information about everything, not just the movement of the governments, but intel about other organized crime groups and politicians. They extracted information about businessmen. They extracted information about companies, information about everything.
The people of Coahuila refer to those years as El Tiempo Oscuro, the dark times. Sombra is the commander of Policía de Acción y Reacción de Coahuila, a group of tactical state police forces in Coahuila who were formed specifically to hunt down and kill Zetas. Today, they've got armored vehicles and high-tech Israeli machine guns, but back at the beginning of the Zeta war, they were outgunned and outmanned.
We've heard rumors about drones carrying bombs, that about mines that explode on impact. Tell us about the capabilities that they have, that you've seen.
Well, in this region specifically, the most powerful weapon the enemy has is the 50 caliber machine gun, as well as grenades. And yes, back then they did have drones. Today they don't. Yes, and also mines.
Dozens of Sombra's men were kidnapped and killed in the early years of the war. It was common for him to get text messages on his phone showing his fellow police being tortured and murdered by the Zetas. Enfrentamientos, or shootouts, with convoys of armed cartel tanks with 50 caliber machine guns were a daily occurrence.
In that era, it was all of the time, every day, and at any moment. Much of the time, we didn't sleep at all. I would think to myself, I don't know how this is going to end. Would they be able to kill me? Or could I finally get some rest? Or would they come pick me up and make me disappear like the others? Or, even worse, could they locate my family? All of the time, I was in a defensive, combative mindset. Every day, all of the time, every day. And that's why I tell you it was like a war. Because every day you enter a mental state of survival.
So somebody was getting killed every day. But little by little, year after year, Sombra's men wore the Zetas down. It didn't sound like they arrested many of them either. Just like Ed Calderon's battalion of special forces officers fighting the cartels in Tijuana, the rule was kill, 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 or arrest, torture for information, and then kill. You won't get many of them to admit it on camera, of course, but this is standard practice in Mexican law enforcement when it comes to dealing with cartels.
When we meet the enemy face to face, there is no truce.
It's probably one of the reasons that cartel sicarios fire on military and police as soon as they see them. They know that they won't be taken alive. Here's what one member of Sombra's team who was involved in heavy fighting back then had to say about the rules of engagement.
I'll be honest with you. Let me speak sincerely now. They always fire first.
They always fire on you first?
Always.
So they see you and then the shooting starts?
Yes, always. So, for example, in our region, because I can't really speak for other places, the enemy dedicates themselves to ambushes. I have never seen a direct engagement, a direct firefight. It's always ambushes. They use treachery.
Yes, and they must use these as well, these caltrops, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they put them on sidewalks and on roads and wait for us to drive over them.
Yes, and they use the vegetation of the landscape to disguise themselves.
Looking back, I feel a little silly that I was pressing these guys on human rights abuses. The Zetas don't deserve sympathy. They killed so many police and innocent people alike, and in the most horrendous ways. If anyone deserves to have their rights violated, it was probably them. There's a brutality to Mexican culture that goes back centuries, and much of the blame does belong to the government and to the police force. But these young men are just poor guys from the rural areas who found themselves face to face with the most evil criminal organization to ever exist in Mexico. They were just trying to survive, and the scars they bear to this day are deep.
How does it make you feel when you experience losses on your side?
It hurts. It hurts badly, especially when they're companions. We spend more time with our companions, our brothers in arms, than we spend with our families. And we take care of each other. They're my colleagues, the people you see here now. They're like my own brothers. Far from being just co-workers, these are brothers, brothers in arms, brothers in a mission. My life depends on them, and their lives depend on me. And their deaths, far from making me want to quit, actually give me an anger to go out and want to do more work.
Well, speaking of anger, I experienced many losses of friends during my part of the war. These losses made me feel angry. It made me feel vengeful. It gave me a toxic feeling. And sometimes it would make me feel, and forgive me for saying the word, but a bastard, a mother. Like I wanted to go catch these guys and search for the enemy high and low.